Hey, John Gilroy here. Gartner says 40% of agentic AI projects will fail by 2027. Today, a Microsoft perspective on AI and the federal government. Hit the music, Manny. Welcome to the Federal Tech Podcast, the podcast that connects you to federal technology leaders. My name is John Gilroy, and I will be your moderator. Our guest today in the virtual studio is Wole Moses, Chief AI Officer for Microsoft Federal Civilian. Going to jump into Microsoft and AI. That's a pretty big pond, isn't it, Wole?
It absolutely is. Lots to talk about.
You're going to need little ductile inflatable things because there's just too much to talk about. I don't know where to start. I guess one place to start is maybe defining some concepts where Microsoft is in the big picture here, and maybe talk about Copilot, how it fits in this general discussion. So you're walking down the street, talking to a neighbor, they go, "Hey, you work for Microsoft. What's this Copilot stuff?" So Moses, what's this Copilot stuff anyway?
Yeah, that's actually a common question I get. So Copilot think about Copilot as an AI assistant. We have lots of different Copilots, and what we're doing at Microsoft is we are essentially infusing AI and more specifically generative AI capabilities into our portfolio of technologies and products. And so when we do that, we call those Copilots. The goal of the Copilots is to assist the users of those products and by making them more productive, by helping them do things that maybe they didn't know how to do. And so it truly is an AI assistant with awareness and context around the product that it's a part of.
So it's an agent, is that correct then? Or is
Not
that a different concept?
That's a different concept. Now there's a connection between Copilot and agents, but Copilot in general, think about it as an AI assistant that is there to help you and assist you in being more productive in your use of that product. And we can go into some examples later if that helps.
Yeah. I opened with that little hook about 40% from Gartner. Does that make sense to you that a lot of these people are jumping into agentic AI and they're lost and they're going to fail? I mean, I think there needs to be some guardrails somewhere for this. I mean, people are just dumping in. You know, you've seen them do it.
Yeah, I mean, there has to be a plan with AI, agentic AI. So, yeah, I mean, it has to be very thoughtful and deliberate. The first thing is, what is the goal of the project? We don't want to do AI for the sake of doing AI. And so in the federal context, we usually try to start with how does this relate to the agency's core mission or the agency's core goals or strategic plan? And how do we prioritize the AI use cases along those lines? And so there's more to it than that, but a good starting point is connectivity to the core mission of the agency or something that's strategic that the agency is trying to do.
I see humans are humans. I've dealt with them for many years, and they'll jump into a bright, shiny light, bright, dangly thing, and not have a strategy. So I would think with an organization as large as Microsoft, you've seen everything, and maybe maybe that's the first step of what's the strategy on this and how are we going to structure the LLMs? Is that where you start?
Yeah, the first step is when we work with our agency customers is to really, as I said, understand what they're trying to do and how it relates to some big picture goal, right? And then from there, we need to evaluate what is the best solution. Is it AI? In many cases it is, but in some cases it's not. And then from there we can think about what is the best tool in the tool belt because there's a lot of different AI tools. From a Microsoft perspective, we have a breadth of capabilities that we bring to bear for customers. We have SaaS AI capabilities that like Microsoft 365 Copilot. In many cases, we find out that that is essentially going to be something that meets the sweet spot of what our customers are trying to achieve. But then we also have on the other end of the spectrum, we have platform capabilities built into things like Microsoft Azure and our Azure AI Foundry that enable our customers to build their own custom AI capabilities. And then we have tools somewhere in the middle as well.
So when I did my research this morning for this interview, I stumbled on the phrase multimodal, and I've got some definitions, played around with a little bit. So maybe you can. How does multimodal fit in this whole AI and the federal government conversation? How does it fit in?
Yeah, well, think about multimodal as really expanding the way that we can communicate with AI. And so if we take a step back and think about generative AI capabilities, like think about ChatGPT, when we first were introduced to it, We used our keyboard on our laptop or on our phone to type text and communicate with it, and that was and it replied back in kind. And so multimodal capabilities introduce other modalities and other ways of communicating with AI. And so, for example, conversation is another modality. And so multimodal would include me being able to talk to AI instead of typing and it being able to reply back to me. And that's a more natural way for humans to communicate. Multimodality also includes me being able to use the camera on my phone and point it to, and I've done this as a real life example, point it to a toilet that was running the inside of the tank and having a conversation and it looking using video to help me troubleshoot what was going on and what I needed to do to repair it. Now, if you think about that in terms of the federal context, think about all the different scenarios where video or audio based input might be useful as a means to communicate with AI as part of some sort of work process. And so you can probably start to imagine lots of scenarios where those different modalities can become useful.
So, Wole, in 40 years, when your kids are writing the history of this decade, I think they'll look at the Biden administration, and Biden seemed to focus really on security and making sure things didn't get out of hand, and they were afraid of it. And I would say, generally speaking, this administration is throwing that out the window and just say, go for the innovation. So, fire and ice. I mean, you got to have a balance somewhere. I mean,
Right.
if someone once said with AI, if you go too fast, you get a speeding ticket. If you go too slow, you get a parking ticket. So how do you balance this?
Yeah, that's a great point, and those are great analogies. I mean, I think humans in systems that we use tend to work around equilibrium. So I think we'll find our equilibrium. I agree with you. The previous administration's focus was around taking a risk-based approach, and maybe a lot of that had to do with the fast introduction of this technology. No one sort of really understood it and what the impact of it would be across lots of different dimensions, economic, social, and otherwise. The current administration released the AI action plan. It's definitely a more aggressive approach. I think we will settle on the right level of equilibrium, which will include both. I mean, even in the current action plan, there is conversation about risk and security. And so I think we'll find that right path. The good news is that we've been thinking about all these things we've been organizations like Microsoft, the federal government, and other companies have been very thoughtful about thinking about how to move quickly, but then also how to make sure that we're careful and deliberate and we think about risk as well.
I have been around this technology topic for a while here, and I wrote about Microsoft for the Washington Post 30 years ago. So there are Microsoft been around a long time. There are legacy systems in the federal government, and so what about legacy systems in AI? I mean, one argument is that, hey, Wole, look, it took us 30 years to get this right. We finally got it down. Don't touch it. And then you're coming in, they're going, I could make it faster and cheaper. And there's the back and forth and back and forth. So legacy systems, I think, would be a good model to showcase some efficiency, wouldn't they?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think the conversation of legacy systems really is a sweet spot in terms of the opportunity for AI in the US federal government. And so there's a couple ways to think about it. So first of all, there are some legacy systems that have, let's be honest, they've ossified, they're not flexible, they can themselves introduce lots of risk due to the opaqueness of how these systems work. And so those systems themselves, in many cases, weren't modernized because no one's around to understand them. Think about the
Ha!
legacy code base. And so
Yeah.
that there's an opportunity right there for AI to help go back and look at this legacy code base and understand what's going on and then to modernize it, document what's going on. And then also the next phase might be to modernize it into a modern language. So that's one opportunity. The other opportunity, so we think about legacy systems. I'd expand that conversation to legacy processes as well. We have a lot of legacy process and a lot of legacy ways of doing things. And so therein lies the opportunity for AI and in particular AI agents to modernize processes and modernize workflows. And in some cases where it makes sense to automate those things. And so you can then not only operate more efficiently, you have the opportunity to help agencies maybe do some things that they wanted to do, but they didn't have the human capital to do those things. And so a lot of opportunity both around legacy systems, but also legacy processes in government.
Now we talk about football. There's a football player in the area here named Jaden Daniels, and last year he made some throws that were breathtaking. They just were. They were stunning. And I think this word breathtaking, it's applied to artificial intelligence and how it's helping software developers become more efficient. And software developers are saying it's making me 10x better. It is breathtaking. I mean, I don't want to downplay it and I don't want to bump it up too much, but this is a word that's used and developers are loving it because it helps them a lot, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And I like how you made that switch. I am a Jaden Daniels fan as well. He had a great season last season. So yeah, I mean, absolutely. So if you think about software developers, yeah, that is one of the first really strong use cases for generative AI and amplifying and accelerating the work that software developers do, both in terms of coding assistants like GitHub Copilot, which was the first Copilot that Microsoft introduced to help developers write code faster, to help them do unit testing, to help them, as I mentioned earlier, document code bases. So yeah, that is absolutely an opportunity. There will be more software written due to generative AI being available.
Years ago, people went to the cloud, and about 4 or 5 into it, they said, it has to be cloud native. Okay, really good. And it's accelerating now. People are talking about AI, and now people are talking about AI native. So it's a phrase. It's a trending phrase I see too. So Microsoft with Azure products, many other things. I think that phrase may apply to a lot of things you're doing with this innovation with Copilot. I mean, I didn't know there were that many different Copilots. So maybe what you're doing is you're making AI native Copilots. Is that the right phrasing?
Yeah, I think you can look at it in that way. So I think, the way to think about it is just think about the different products from Microsoft that you use. I talked about Microsoft 365, which is the world's most popular productivity software suite. Definitely that's the case in the US federal government. And so if you think about infusing generative AI into some of the different services within something like a Microsoft 365, in fact, one of my favorites is the Teams Copilot. So there's a Copilot capability in Teams, which is
Hmm.
it's for me it's an astonishing capability both inside of a meeting. I'm in a meeting sometimes. I'm a visual thinker, and so a lot of times I'm in a meeting and someone will say something and my mind will wander, and then whatever is said in the next 5 to 10 seconds, I might miss it because I'm still thinking about that other thing, or maybe I'm taking notes and I'm missing things that are happening. And so oftentimes what I can do after I realize I've missed the last 10 or 15 seconds is I can go to Teams Copilot and I can ask it, what was just said? What did John just say in 15 seconds ago? And it'll tell me what you just said, bringing me back up to speed and letting me fully participate in that meeting. There's a note-taking capability as well, which is incredible. We call it Teams Facilitator, where you have a big meeting with a lot of colleagues, a lot of action items are discussed, a lot of things that we plan to do. Sometimes we take tangents. The facilitator is literally taking notes throughout the meeting. It is assembling those notes into action items, and then at the end of the meeting is all ready for you with the bow tie. That's just one example. And then think about what happens if you miss a meeting, if you're double booked like I have many times, and I couldn't make that meeting altogether. I can go back to that Teams Copilot and ask it, what happened in the meeting? What were the points discussed? Were there any actions assigned to me? This is just one example. As I said, we're infusing AI into all of our tool sets. And so you can start to imagine the productivity savings. And then also the other thing to think about is what this does for the knowledge workers, that it removes a lot of the mundane types of tasks that we have to do every day. It takes that out of the picture for us. AI will handle that, and then we can focus on the more strategic tasks and the more creative tasks using our human ingenuity and being able to focus on that instead of those mundane things that really suck up a lot of time but don't really add tremendous value.
Yeah. When you talk about the commanders, they of course practice in Loudoun County. This weekend, Loudoun County has a county fair. Back in the day, you go to a county fair and you see these whack-a-mole games. You hit this hammer, you hit and pop up, and you go and pop up and go. Wait a minute! And this was a whole lot of fun. This was a great time waster for my kids. But it applies to artificial intelligence. So you have vulnerability, and it needs to be patched. Then another vulnerability because AI is attacking the vulnerabilities, and the other AI agent is remediating. So it is digital whack-a-mole. It's like now instead of manual me against you, it's my agent against your agent. This is a nightmare scenario.
Well, I think what you're talking about is security in general, and not just what the way you've described it. It really is a description of the cybersecurity space in general. We can assume it'll be a constant, eternal game of whack-a-mole. Um, because you always have bad actors, you'll have nation states who have different agendas. And so to your point though, AI provides a very, very powerful tool, especially to organizations who have a massive amount of telemetry, a massive amount of data, and who have sort of world scope around understanding what types of attacks are happening in different parts of the world, in different geographies, and bringing that intelligence to bear to help remediate both reactively and in most cases, hopefully proactively.
So, Willie, I know you sit down with federal leaders all the time, and I think there are some, let's call them sci-fi promises about AI, and I think it may be your job to walk in and go, okay, put your hands on the table and take a deep breath because it's almost like, you got to go outside and take off your shoes and stand in the grass a few minutes, and then we come back in and talk about it because they're gonna the humans' expectations, just everything.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, and that's it's interesting you say that because especially with the introduction of new technology and there's a lot of articles and there's a lot of noise in the air, you get extremes, right? We were seeing from the dystopian view of what AI would do to the utopian view, to your point, like it's going to solve for everything, and you're trying to find that happy medium, and that's why I mentioned earlier that really the best place to start is what is the strategy of your agency that you're marching towards? What are you trying to accomplish? What are some of the priorities? And then we can take a step back and understand where AI might fit into helping you solve for those. In many cases, it does, but to your point, in some cases, you can't just throw everything at the wall and think that AI is going to stick, right? So you have to be very deliberate, very, very thoughtful. And I think that's we're seeing a more measured approaches. And the other thing we're seeing is we're seeing agencies learn from each other. And so from a Microsoft federal perspective, we have a chance to, in my role, I have a chance to work with federal leaders across the board. And so what we see in many cases is that a lot of the challenges that different agencies have are similar, and one agency might innovate around a solution to that challenge, but it may not be well known inside of other agencies. And so part of what we do is we bring agencies together around sharing successes and best practices. And that's been super helpful for agencies in terms of learning from each other.
Well, last week I did 3 shows focusing on a compliance called CMMC. And right now in the Washington, D.C. area, it's a hot topic. Of course, compliance is always a hot topic here.
Right.
So tell me about Microsoft and compliance, whether it's CMMC or whether it's federal. I mean, pick a letter. Go to NIST and just grab something, huh?
All right.
So how can you help?
Okay, I'll start with letter F, but not a bad word. I'll start with FedRAMP. And
FedRAMP. Yeah, man.
so that's where
Another
we'll
one.
start. So we obviously have to be compliant with FedRAMP, and we do the work internally with our engineering teams to ensure that our products are FedRAMP compliant because we know that's important for their ability to be used in the federal context. So yeah, compliance is super important. But then the other thing that we do is we know that the other compliance or governance framework that I'll call out is NIST. In particular, the NIST RMF, the AI RMF as well is something that we align to, and then when we talk to agencies around governance, is what we point them to as well, and they're already looking at it, and so we within our stack enable our customers to do all the things that the NIST RMF calls for. And for example, we provide tooling to enable customers who are building AI solutions to identify risk, to measure that risk, to manage that risk, and to do governance and AI operations around that risk. Within our broader tool set, Microsoft has technologies like Microsoft Purview, which is our information compliance technology stack that applies to compliance in Microsoft 365. We have Intro, which is our identity solution, which is what our customers use when they're authenticating securely into Microsoft services. We apply those same services. We've integrated those same services into the AI capabilities. And so Purview and Entra, which our customers are already using, will integrate into the AI solutions that they seek to build.
I was kind of facetious earlier saying in 40 years, your son's going to write the history of this decade. But let's talk about maybe, let's say your son's 20 and he's in college and he's trying to figure out how to learn all this stuff. And I don't know what advice I would give college students now who maybe are computer science majors. Should they become philosophy majors? Should they become logic majors? I mean, I don't know. So maybe you can help us figure out how to keep up, where to learn. I mean, there's just so many terms involved. I mean, I could do a new term a day on this for the next month. I mean, agentic AI, bang, AI. I mean, so how do you keep up? What's the best way? User groups in the federal government or videos, or how do you keep up?
Yeah, I would say all of the above. Your point is a true point. It is very, very difficult to keep up. The pace of change is breathtaking. You have a lot of organizations, a lot of research labs, a lot of innovation is happening at a very, very fast pace. For me personally, for me, I'm passionate about this. And so it doesn't feel like work if on the weekends I'm reading about some new development or I'm going deep on something that I didn't understand. I'm watching videos to the point you made. There are a lot of folks I follow on LinkedIn who are AI sort of, do I call them influencers? I don't know. They're AI thought leaders. Let me call them AI thought leaders who are surfacing a lot of innovation and are writing papers and blogs and also linking to other thought leaders. And so that's what I'm doing. And then also obviously I work with a lot of smart people and we learn from each other. And so learning from other people, finding being able to curate sources of information and learnings with this fast pace that we're experiencing, those are all important. To your original question around what to study in college, that's a great question. Everybody's asking that question. It's I'm not going to pretend I know the answer because to the point we just made, the pace of change is so fast. However, one thing that I will say is that I think that multidisciplinary learning, so learning across lots of different college majors, if you will, would be something that I would advise. And then also learning how either in your field of study in university or in practical applications, problem solving. Right? We'll always need to figure out how to solve problems. We'll always need to figure out how to integrate technical and sociological components together. And so in your either directly in your field of study or in other opportunities that may present themselves, look for opportunities to do those things. And then obviously the other place is communication skills, right? And so you know that this very well, being able to communicate ideas, being able to persuade people, there will always be, I believe, a need for that as well. And so those are some of the things that jump out at the top of my mind.
I wrote down the way curate. We said curate. He said, yeah, curate. I said, why doesn't Wole curate like 5 podcasts, 5 videos, and 5 articles to read this month to keep up with AI? And you could do that the first of the month, and then the topics would be completely different in 30 days. I mean, an article on LinkedIn, I think that would garner a lot of followers because it's going to be your perspective on this. We've been in the fight and you got the scars and everything else. So I think that would be valuable because, some people want to watch a video. Some people want to read a physical book. Some
Right.
people just want to listen to a podcast and other people want to throw a football or other people want to maybe go outside and, I don't know, do something, cut the grass and listen to a podcast or something. But maybe that's what I'll start doing 5, 5, and 5 podcasts, 5 videos, and 5 articles to keep up on Microsoft, to keep up on artificial intelligence. It's something like that.
I might steal the idea from you as well.
I like it. I like it. You have a very distinctive voice, very distinctive name. It's going to be easy to remember. And if you could be top 5 for Moses or top 15 for Moses, some kind of a short, and then people can just pick and choose what they want. It's like a salad bar. Oh, I hate celery, but I like tomatoes. Oh, I don't like anchovies, but I like, I don't know, lettuce or something. So yeah, it'd be something like that. But it's I think it's because it's just in Microsoft. You can do the Microsoft monthly. Okay, here's 5, 5, and 5 that I learned this month that you didn't know about. Hey, what I learned that you didn't know about Microsoft.
Yeah.
And I work there.
Yeah, you're right. It is. It's like I said, I mean, it takes really all those things as I said, I have these places where people who I follow and learn from, but then also, fortunately, I have a community of folks, of smart people who I work with,
That,
and I learn a
yeah.
lot from them as well.
Share that knowledge, man. Share that knowledge. It's great. Well, maybe you'll share the knowledge now. If people want to get more information, if they are out walking the dog and listening to this podcast and want audio information, they go to, is there a Microsoft page you can direct them to?
Yeah, I'd say probably the simplest place is Microsoft.com/AI. And so that's going to sort of ground you in the breadth of things that we're doing. And then from there, you can granularly double click in. And in terms of the federal government, we have a site called, the link would be aka.ms gov efficiency. And I'll make sure you get the links to these so you can provide those as well. And so that's a more federal view around what we're doing to help federal agencies become more efficient. The first link I provided was really around the breadth and depth of everything Microsoft is doing across all of our customers in our complete technology stack.
Yeah, that's really good. And I'll put that link in the show notes if you want more information. If you want to connect to Wole, it's Wole Moses at LinkedIn. He's soon to release his Microsoft Monthly AI updates for Microsoft. It's good.
Did you
this
just
month,
commit me to doing that?
Oh, I sure did, buddy. You're in big trouble now. And I know all the big important people at Microsoft, and they're going to hold your feet to the fire on this.
All right, that's my weekend. That's my weekend assignment now.
No, yeah, you're going to do it anyway. Just this is what I read. This is you're doing it anyway. Just let other people know, and that's the point. Let other people know because I didn't know you could do that, and something will happen. Well, unfortunately, here we're running out of time. You have been listening to the Federal Tech Podcast with John Gilroy. Our guest today is Wole Moses, Chief AI Officer, Microsoft Federal Civilian.